we will be looking at defining the computer, identify different types of computers, discuss the advantages and the disadvantages of using computers, explain the use of various input devices, and we are going to explain the use of various output devices. Now today we are looking at computers. Students, you are already familiar with what computers are. So we are going to be doing a little bit of brainstorming. When you hear the word computer, what comes to mind? These are some of the responses that we got from students. And as you can see, we have a host of things on the board. We have internet, social media, games, friends, messages, school, storage, programs, mouse, education, keyboard, hacking, jobs, shopping, virus, video, research. And I am sure the list includes many more. If we should ask you at home, what did you come up with when we mentioned the word computer? I am sure we would be adding many other information to this list here. Let us continue. We are looking at what is a computer. Now, a computer is an electronic device that manipulates data and information and perform tasks or calculations according to a set of instructions or programs. Computers have the ability to store, retrieve, and process data. Now, computers have been around a while, ever since the 1800s, but they only became popular in the 1940s. Businesses have been using computers to replace many persons in the workforce because the computer is so compact that you are able to do many things. As we have on the board here, we can store, retrieve, and process data. Therefore, we no longer need all the manpower in order to get it done, as the computer in itself can do all of those activities. Before computers were introduced to businesses, however, in order to create documents, we would use what we call the typewriter. Now, to get the duplicate of a document when we use the typewriter, if it's a manual typewriter, you would have to type the document and then you photocopy the document. Before the typewriter, you would have to write the document and then you photocopy it if you wanted a duplicate. Before the photocopier came in, however, you would write the document and use carbon paper to get a duplicate of the document, or you would simply have to rewrite the document as many times as you want for duplication. In businesses, in order to do calculations before we invented the computer, we used to have the abacus machine that was used, and that is the first type of calculator that was used for calculating figures and numbers in businesses. And then we had the advent of the calculators. Now, the calculators are still used in businesses, but they are not able to process volumes of information as you would when you are using the computer. Before computers in business, in order to communicate, the main device that was used was the telephone. The telephone would be operated by an operator for internal calls and external calls. Another way to communicate within the office was using internal memorandums that would be sent to various individuals. They also used notice boards for various types of messages. In order to store information, before the advent of computers, they would normally use filing cabinets and also folders, and they would also use boxes. Businesses are still storing information using these equipments. However, they are not as much as they would before because the computers are taking care of that process. Now, this is what the office storage was like, or is still like for some businesses. We have what we call the filing cabinet there, and we also have a file folder. These information now can be stored on the computer. If you notice, the information is actually going over into the computer by one means or another. Is either you're going to type the information, or you're going to scan the information that you already have on paper so that you can store it in the machine. Now, computers have many and varied uses. Organizations and individuals use the computer for different reasons. For EDPM, the main reason for using the computer is to create documents, to do our research, and also to send emails. However, with the interruption now of COVID-19, most of the classes, or all of the classes now, are being held online, and businesses are also using their communication chat to ensure that they have meetings online. No longer do we have to be in the same room in order to have meetings. We can also browse the web to gain information on products and services, and we can also use the web to do our shopping. Now, we can play games from the internet, or we can download games onto our system so that we can have it to use at our own disposal. We may also shop for items such as audio, video, and we can do photo edit online if we so desire. Listen to music and also solve mathematical problems. So the computer is able to do many things. We can also watch video on the computer and create sounds. We are now looking at the characteristics of computers. There are many characteristics of using the computer, but we have the main ones here on screen. Because the computer is used widely around the world in businesses to ensure that business run efficiently, then we need to ensure that the characteristics that are necessary and important is with the machines that we purchase. So the computers have speed, which means that it is able to process a lot of information in a short space of time. Human beings would not be able to do that in the same time frame as the computer does. The computer also has to be reliable. For it to be reliable, it means that all the capacities and capabilities have to be working, and it also means that the amount of information that you put in should be able to process at the speed so that the business can remain efficient and productive. Once the information input into the computer is accurate, then the end product will also be accurate. So information, the data entered in the computer must be accurate at all times. The computer is diligent because it can do a lot of things at once, and also it is able to work for long periods of time without getting tired. Once it is in the right environment, then it will be able to function effectively. When you store things on the computer, you are able to retrieve those information. Also, you are able to store on secondary storage memory, and you can retrieve as much as you want, whenever you want, once your computer is operational. Once the computer is logical, it depends on how your system is set up and how information that is gathered are stored. They should be stored together so that they can be accessed easily. Versatility of the computer refers to that the computer being able to do many things at once. So you should be able to do a PowerPoint presentation, as well as you should be able to browse the web, or you can be typing a document. All of those things can be done simultaneously, which means you don't have to close out of one application before you start something else. And automation means that the computer can work on its own. Once it is given the correct information, you can even preset activities that you would want the computer to do, and at the specified time, the computer will get it done. So these are some of the characteristics of a computer system. We are now moving on to the components of a computer. Now, everything that you do on the computer, it relies on both hardware and software. One cannot work without the other. Hence, we say that software is a set of instructions that tells a computer exactly what to do. And the hardware is the physical part of the computer that enables the software to carry out all the instructions. Software cannot be executed without hardware, and hardware cannot perform any task without software. So these are the differences between software and hardware. Software cannot be touched because they are programs embedded into the computer system, but you can see and touch the hardware parts of the computer. Software is debugged in case of a problem. So if you find a problem on your computer system, you can use debugging for the software, but the hardware is repaired in case there is a problem. Software is reinstated if the problem is not resolved. Hardware is replaced if the problem is not resolved. So you can look at what we have here, students, and try to identify the major difference between the hardware and software and how they ensure that the computer operates efficiently and effectively. Now we are going to be looking at some examples of hardware and software. Now the hardware, as we said before, are the physical parts of the computer systems, and we have some examples there. We have the keyboard, the mouse, the monitor, the CD-ROM, the motherboard, the printer, digital camera, and the scanner. All of these devices you are familiar with already, maybe except the motherboard, which is found inside of the system unit. And you also know that the camera, which is the digital camera that you're seeing there, you no longer need to use a digital camera for most of your devices, because most of these modern devices comes with a camera. So you no longer need to use an external one. Then we have software, and remember that the software is the application program that ensures that the computer follows the instructions that are given. So these are some of the main applications that I know you are familiar with. We have the Microsoft PowerPoint, which some students are already familiar with. We have Skype, because a lot of students have been logging on to Skype. And the main one that most students are familiar with is Microsoft Word. So these are applications that we will use in order to get activities done on the computer. Now let us look at data and information. Data is a collection of raw facts, figures, and symbols, such as numbers, words, image, video, and sound, given to the computer during the input phase. So if you write a single number on the computer screen, we will not know what that number means if you do not put something additional to it. So we are saying that we call it data if it is not complete. It means the information that you have there is incomplete and we would not be able to make sense of it. Information is meaningful, organized, and useful data. Computers manipulate data to create information. So if you put the single number on the screen and we do not understand, you need to complete the data, put additional things there so we can say the information is complete and we understand what you are saying exactly before we are able to move on. Data becomes information when it is put into context. That means when it is given a meaning. A barcode number is just data on its own. So the product name, image, and price. But this data becomes meaningful when the data is put together. So it means when you scan the barcode, when you go into the supermarket, it will tell you the name of the product. It will give you the price of the product as well. So with part of it standing alone, then the barcode reader would not be able to read the item. We're moving on to functions of the computer. Now the computer have 4 basic functions: input, processing, output, and storage. When we input information and data into the machine, we do so using some input devices, and the main ones are the keyboard and the mouse. Now, after the information is inputted, the information is processed into the CPU, and it is processed and then stored if you want it to be stored on the primary storage device, or you can store it on secondary storage devices, such as your CD or your flash drive, or you can input the information, you can output, the information using your printer. So this is what the input, storage, and output looks like with the processing. Good? So we input the information into the system using one of the input devices. Then the information is processed and stored, or you can output the information on the monitor or the printer. Once the information is seen on the monitor, we call it a soft copy output. So the information that is displayed on the monitor is called a soft copy output, and the information that is printed from the printer, we call it a hard copy output. So if you are looking at the computer screen and you're seeing what you have typed, that is soft copy. But when you actually print the information out, it's called a hard copy. Now, there are many advantages and disadvantages of using a computer system. These advantages and disadvantages will vary from business to business or from person to person. The advantages of using the computer system is that it has speed and power, and it is very reliable. Once the information inputted is reliable, then the information will remain consistent. It offers a wide variety of storage, a wide volume of storage, meaning that you can store on the primary memory, which is the RAM, random access memory, or you can store on the secondary storage devices. It helps you, the computer helps you to do communication very frequently and effectively and very fast. So you can communicate with a number of persons very easily using meetings. You can also see the persons that you are having the conversation with. or you can just talk to them as if you're using the telephone. So you can use different communication tools in order to speak with your employees or with your friends. Now, the disadvantages of the computer system will also vary from user to user, but most of the times you will have persons developing health risk from using the computer for very long periods of time. So if you are, let us say our students now are supposed to be using the computer for lessons, we encourage them not to sit at the computer for the entire day. And so we encourage them to take a break. And when you take the break, you move away from the computer system. So you should not be sitting in front of the computer for the entire day. It will cause health risk. Now, the computer, another disadvantage is violation of privacy, because if some persons get into your information, if they get the password to your computer or the password to your email or anything, and they want to be malicious, they can also use the computer to hack into your devices and to do whatever you may not want them to do to your emails. Public safety. So the computer, they are very difficult to dispose of once they are old, and so sometimes you don't know what to do with them, and the persons may just throw them out all over the environment, and this may cause the environment not to look very beautifying. So that is one of the disadvantages of using the computer system. It impacts on the labor force. Lots of workers have lost their jobs because they are unable to use the computer system, or because the job that they are used to doing is no longer available because the computer, using the computer, has changed the way our businesses operate. Good. And also the impact on the environment, same as disposing of the equipment. Some persons don't know how to dispose of the computer equipment once they are not in use. All right, so these are just some of the advantages and disadvantages of using the computer system. So I know we have looked at a lot of things so far, so we are now going to look at a simple review question, which I know that you are familiar with already and that you are able to understand and complete in less than a minute. So we are looking at the computer, the different parts of the computer, and I just want you to identify these parts of the computers that we have here on the system. Are you ready? All right. So number one is identifying the monitor. Did you get that? Yes. So number one is identifying the monitor. What is number two identifying? Number two identifies the system unit. Number three, yes, number three identifies the mouse. Number four is looking at the keyboard. And number five is looking at the printer. So I know you are already familiar with the parts of the computer. So that was just a little refresher for you. Now we are moving on to the types of computers. Now we have different types of computers, and persons will use the different types of computers for different activities. When most people hear the word computer, they think of personal computers such as desktop and laptop. However, computers come in many shapes and sizes, and they perform many different functions on a daily basis. When you withdraw cash from an ATM, scan groceries at the store, or use a calculator, you are actually using a type of computer. I know some persons were not aware of that, especially when you are using a calculator. some persons are not aware that that is a form of computer. Now, there are 4 main types of computers. One, the supercomputers. Next, mainframe computers, mini computers, and microcomputers. Now, we are going to be looking at them individually. Supercomputers are the largest type of computer that we have. They are very powerful and they can do complex mathematical equations in a short space of time. The supercomputer is very, very fast and it is also very expensive. Most times you will use the supercomputers to be able to predict the weather, or you can use it if you're looking at building military explosives and things like those. So the supercomputer is very complex and it is only used by some organizations, not all. The mainframe computer is very large. It can handle multiple users at the same time, and it also works at a very fast pace. But the mainframe computer is smaller than the supercomputer, and also it is used by many business organizations. It performs at top speed with multiple users able to use it at the same time. Mini computers are smaller than mainframe computers. Mini computers are sometimes referred to as mid-range computers. They are also very fast, but not as fast as the mainframe and the supercomputer. However, they are relatively cheaper than those two mentioned before. They can handle a lot of processing speed at once, and they are also equipped to do lots of activities as well. Now we are looking at the microcomputers, and the microcomputers fall into different categories. So we have different types of microcomputers. We have the laptop, which most persons are familiar with. We also have the desktop, and some persons also will use their tablets and their cell phone as part of the microcomputer family. Now we're looking at the desktop. The desktop, or the personal computer, is normally used by schools, organizations, and also in the home. It is made to be placed on a sturdy desk, and you will see that some of the desktop computer has a tower that is vertical. Once it is vertical, it is called a tower, but if it's horizontal, it is called a horizontal tower, which you place on the desk. And in this tower, you will find the system unit, or the CPU, which comprise the motherboard, the CU, and the ALU. Laptop is just a little bit different from the desktop computer in that the laptop is, you're able to carry it with you. If you want to take your computer somewhere, you can take your laptop with you. It is battery operated, so once you have charged your battery, most computers are able to give you power for up to at most 10 hours. So at least 1 hour to 10 hours, you should have a battery life for laptop computers, depending on how new your laptop is. Because some computers, once they get older, the battery is not able to retain the charge. So you know you'll have to replace the battery as well. Now we are looking at the tablet computer. And most students are familiar with the tablet because they find it very easy to take from one location to the next. So instead of walking with their heavy laptop, because some of the laptops are very heavy, some students prefer, and even other individuals prefer, to use the tablet because the tablet is more portable than the laptop computer. You can find all of the same features that you'll find on your laptop and the desktop. It's also found on the tablet as well. For the tablet, however, most times you don't need to have your mouse or a keyboard. You can just use the touch-sensitive screen that is available, or some computers. Some tablets will have what we call a sensor. Another type of microcomputer is the palm top. So some business organizers and even other persons will use their palm top to store information such as addresses and telephone numbers. So the palm top is even smaller than the tablet, very portable. It can hold in the palm of the hand, and it can also hold in your pocket depending on how big it is. So we have the palm top, and we have the personal digital assistant, which is also referred to as the PDA for short. And these are very small microcomputers that you are able to take with you wherever you go. Now, some individuals are not aware that the server is a type of computer. Now, the server is most times a very large equipment that is placed in a room. You don't walk and use these servers. They are not portable enough. They are very heavy, and you can use it to network your computers at work or at school. When you network the computers, you are able to share resources. So that ends the reason for the server. So you are able to share resources. It means you don't have to leave where you are working from your workstation to go to another workstation to get a document. Once the document is stored and you are using a server, you can stay at your workstation and access the information. Now we are going to be looking at some other types of microcomputers. As was mentioned before, your smartphone is a type of microcomputer. All of the features that you have on your computers, you will find on your smartphones. You may just find them in a different space on the phone. The thing for the smartphone, however, is that you may not be able to type as comfortable as you would want because the surface is very small. But you can browse the internet, you can do all the other activities that you would normally do on your computer. You can play games, you can use it to have your regular conversations, and so on. So the smartphone, it's very, very, very important as well, just like your computer. Now, wearables. Some persons may be wondering what are wearables, but we are talking about like your watches or those devices that are created now for those persons who are doing like track and field and like to understand what is happening with their body and the time as well. So your wearables can be your watch, used as a type of computer, and it can take measurements of the body in terms of heart rate and so on if you are doing strenuous activities. Game consoles is a specialized type of computer that is used for playing games on your television. So most of our students know what are game consoles, and you will use it, plug it onto the television set, and then you are able to play a particular game using the TV as your monitor. Now the TV in itself, because we have smart television now, then yes, the television is a type of computer system, because you are now able to access the internet from your television. You can also plug additional equipment, to your TV set, such as a speaker, a bigger speaker, a larger one, so you can stay from a distance and hear the television as if you're at the movies, and you're able to browse the internet, and you're also able to find lessons and do all kinds of things on your television, just as you would when you're using the computer. Now we are looking at input devices. Now the input devices sends information to the computer system for processing, and output devices reproduces the display of what you will see on your monitor. Now we have many different input devices, and as was mentioned before, the main ones are the keyboard and the mouse. So we will be looking at the input devices and looking at the output devices, because there are times when the students, yes, you mixed up the input device with the output device, but remember, they are used for different activities. So the input devices are shared on the screen now. We have keyboard, the mouse, light pen, microphone, scanners, digital cameras, PC cameras, light pen, joystick, barcode reader, trackball, sensors, sound card, magnetic strip reader, video digitizer, and the touchpad. Now students, I know that some of you are wondering what some of these input devices are used for. So what we are going to be doing is we are going to ask that you choose the 5 devices on the screen, 5 input devices on the screen that you are not familiar with, not the regular ones, the 5 input devices that you are not familiar with. And for your homework, you are going to identify the uses of these 5 input devices, and you are also going to ensure that you get a picture of what the input devices are used for and what they look like, right? So these are the input devices that we are going to be looking at. And this is where we will stop for today. We looked at what the computer is, what is a computer. We looked at the advantages and disadvantages of using the computer, which we know that most of you already know what the disadvantages and the advantages are, but we are looking at them to ensure that most persons are on the same page and everybody understand what the computer is really used for. Now, when we are finished, you need to go back and ensure that you recap and go through the presentation so that you will remember and have a better understanding when we move forward for the next lesson.